The following video features discussions of mental health and the struggle around loneliness. If this is triggering for you, I would advise you to skip this video. If you or someone you love is facing mental health struggles, do not hesitate to use the internet to find a local or national mental health resource that can help you. Everyone has their struggles, but no one deserves to go through them alone. While the story of Raft focuses heavily on the struggles of survival, not every struggle is the same. While some people have to deal with betrayal and power-hungry monsters, others have to face themselves. Sometimes being alone for far too long can be as much of a struggle as being stranded or facing an unprecedented mutant infestation. Sometimes you are your own worst enemy. The mind is a dangerous place under certain circumstances. Following the coordinates found on deck on the Vasagaten, you will find Balboa Island, a large island with cliffs hanging high above the water. On it is a thriving bear population, a thick forest, functional relay towers, and toxic waste for some reason. You can also pick up the trail of the Correa siblings, which features a different yet glum tale among the many told throughout Raft. For such a vibrant world, Balboa Island features many dark places, but none are as dark as the shadows of a broken mind. This is The Dangers of Loneliness, the story of Balboa Island. There are a few things I need to take care of before continuing. As I've come to learn this year, serialization of content is terrible for algorithm reasons, so this is no longer an 11-part series. There will still be at least 11 videos, but I can already think of a few extra topics I want to cover in the future. Also, I think the name change makes more sense, especially when talking about a specific location. I just feel like it makes more sense. Finally, I will be playing all lore recordings from now on because why not? It makes the video longer, but that way you, the viewer, can hear the lore entry first and then my thoughts on each entry as I piece together the story of a location. Hopefully this will make understanding the pieces of the story a whole lot easier. Now on to the main topic of this video. Balboa Island appears to be a wilderness preserve that is poking straight out of the water. In fact, this sign on the shore tells us a bit more about the area. With high cliffs hanging above the endless sea, any other parts below the main plateau are far below the water. The island has an active and thriving bear population, which was monitored by attendants. At the time of the rising waters, we can see that Astrid and Bruno Correa were in charge of the bear population, as well as maintaining a relay tower array. Their shift, which was more of a seasonal job, started on December 7th. It was supposed to end on February 6th, but that clearly didn't happen. One thing that I find strange is that the siblings started their shift on December 7th, but we know that things around the world were not going well by December 12th, as Cuckoo, Owl, and Sparrow had arrived at the radio tower by that point. They were desperately trying to reach Selene, which is supposed to be humanity's only hope against the endless ocean. To me, this reads as if the world had already been consumed by the endless sea. You would think that the Correa siblings would be more concerned about getting to higher, drier land. I have speculated about the early days of the rising waters, which saw a distinct lack of concern by most of the public. If I had to guess, the people that were most concerned about the floods were the survivors of coastal areas. It's even possible that world governments and media tempered any panic in order to maintain order. Knowing what we know about the rising waters and the people that were responsible for them, it would not surprise me if a global propaganda machine turned day and night to keep the world population calm. Considering much of Balboa is well above water by the events of the game, it's possible the water level was much lower when their shift started. All we know is that the flooding started well before December. There is nothing in the story of Balboa Island that tells us the conditions of the world at the start of their shift, so we can just assume, thanks to the arrival of the radio tower team on the 12th, that things were already going sideways before the 7th. There is a postcard that can be found from the siblings that I assume was supposed to be sent to their family ahead of Christmas, but it clearly never got delivered. Seeing as Owl picked up the distress call from Balboa Island on December 22nd, something tells me things were not going well for the Correa siblings last Christmas. Let's continue by hearing each of Bruno's 3 notes one at a time.
3 months ago, My sister Astrid and I were put in charge of the ranger station on Balboa. We handled the bear population and kept the relay towers operational. The next shift was meant to start weeks back, but the replacements never showed up. Henry suggested that I start writing things down after Astrid disappeared, so that I'm not feeling so lonely anymore.
Bruno's first note tells us that their shift has ended and it has been at least a few weeks. This would put this note towards the back half of February. He stated what their job was, which is how we know what the siblings were responsible for while at Balboa. As we know from Balboa's distress call in late December and the slew of other distress calls picked up by Owl in the following months, the world was very much gone by February. This is why their replacements never came. Society definitely stopped functioning as normal around the time the Correa siblings' shift started, and their replacements were likely long dead before it ended. There is a terrible revelation at the end, which is that Astrid had disappeared some time ago. Bruno also mentioned someone named Henry, which is incredibly concerning based on the fact that only 2 people are stationed at Balboa at a time. The entire yearly schedule for Balboa can be seen, from the last June before the Rising Waters event to the 1st May after, which is likely around the time the game of Raft takes place. Who the hell is Henry? There isn't even an H-named person scheduled in the replacements group, meaning Henry has to be some stranger that washed onto Balboa, right? We will learn more after examining the remainder of Balboa's lore entries.
The kids are fighting. Oh, Astrid would have known how to make them stop. I found her wrench out by the clearing. I've been calling out on the radio. Please, I just want to talk, sis. Miranda is screaming outside. I hope her and Henry make up soon.
In his second note, Bruno continues to mention names of people that should not be on Balboa. Sure, they could have washed ashore, but he mentions kids in this entry. Miranda is mentioned screaming after a fight she had with Henry. Additionally, Astrid would have supposedly known how to make them stop. This line may have a double meaning considering what is happening to Bruno. The remainder of the lore entries reveal that Bruno is losing his mind. Henry, Miranda, and any other names that are not Astrid or Bruno are not real people. The reason why I say that the line, Astrid would have known how to make them stop, has a double meaning is because his current mental state developed after Astrid's disappearance. At least that's what I assume. Assumptions can be dangerous, but I don't think Bruno would be given a job at Balboa if he was severely mentally ill to the point he was hearing voices and naming people that didn't exist. I don't doubt that his sister would know how to calm down 2 kids that were fighting. Maybe that is a skill he knew she had. The double meaning comes from the fact that Astrid, if she reappeared, would have quelled the voices and saved Bruno from his own thoughts. I don't think this was intentional by the devs at Redbeat, but this is my interpretation of the line. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Maybe I'm reading too much into this particular line.
I haven't seen Errol all night. I asked Miranda, but she and Henry won't tell me anything. Oh, they're hiding something. Did they figure out there's only space for 2 of them on the boat? I've decided. I leave the triplets in charge of the remaining relay stations. Bobby will take care of the bears. Yes, it's for the best. So many memories of this place. We'll find you, sis. I promise.
Through the second and third notes by Bruno, we see he is still trying to find Astrid. He continues to make distress calls and is even planning to leave Balboa to find her. Additionally, we can see more of his hallucinated story with a few more names appearing. Now we have Errol, Bobby, and others hinted at. Bruno claims that a conflict between the others stems from the fact that his boat only has room for 2 other people. He believes that Miranda and Henry disappeared Errol and suspects they know about the boat problem. He planned to leave a group of triplets yet unnamed in charge of the relay stations and Bobby in charge of the bears. Bruno is facing an unprecedented mental health crisis and his loneliness is the cause of it. Without his sister or any other person around, he is lost in a false world. His mind has created personas that speak to him and are represented by figures that he physically pieced together. From here, things get much worse for poor Bruno. For this section, I'm going to play all of the remaining notes because they are short and are somewhat related. I should note that none of these entries are from Bruno's perspective. There is no doubt that Bruno wrote and voiced them, but he is not the true author of the contents. They are all penned by one of his personas.
Betrayal. Father trusts the murderers.
He would leave us behind! Ha! We can't have that!
Father has to make a decision. I know it won't be me, so I will be spared.
Not enough boat for all of us. I am sorry, Errol.
The guilty lay restless. We must be punished if we are to rest.
Papa made his mind up a long time ago. He's going after Auntie. Miranda is following, as always.
On a hill next to the Mother Bear's cave, you can find a path of notes that lead to a terrifying scene. We can see that most of the physical representations of his personas are standing in a circle. Their notes discuss their thoughts on their father, Bruno, deciding who will be going with him to find Astrid. Present at this meeting are Bobby and the triplets noted as N, D, and L. The triplets do not have proper names, but there is a sign tucked in a little corner near Relay Station 6 with these names on it. Diana and Lydia could be D and L respectively. As for Rosa, this is the only mention of the name as it is excluded from the lore notes of Balboa Island. Bobby is concerned that Bruno favors the murderers, which are Miranda and Henry. Miranda confesses to killing Errol, which he can be found in front of the Ranger station. Interesting enough, the way Miranda killed Errol was by removing his light bulb. The triplets do not want to be left behind. Bobby acknowledges that he won't be selected. It seems that he believes they must be punished in order to rest. Bobby even appears to have been sacrificed by the triplets. As for Henry, he notes that Bruno had made up his mind a long time ago. His goal was to find Astrid, but could only take 2 of them. As for who those 2 are, we can see that Henry and Miranda, his first 2 personas, can be seen later in Bruno's story. The rest of the personas are left behind either murdered or feeling betrayed by Bruno's decision. Remember that all of this, the notes, the voices of the personas, their physical representations, and the murder of Errol was all Bruno's doing. He was facing a mental crisis, and this is how he dealt with it. It wasn't healthy in any way, but he was alone and had no one to help him. To summarize the story of Balboa Island, let's go back to before the world ended. The 2 Correa siblings took a seasonal job to help handle the bear population at Balboa. They would also help maintain the relay stations in the area. As the world saw unprecedented flooding in December, they would begin their 3-month-long task. Later in December, a distress call would be made from Balboa that would be picked up by the radio tower team. It is unknown if this call was about Astrid's disappearance, but she would disappear sometime before their shift ended in early February. By late February, Bruno began to exhibit a change in mental state that caused him to hear and see hallucinations of personas in his head. He would even give them bodies made of scrap. Over time, the number of personas would increase. Problems would arise as Bruno's personas, Henry and Miranda, would murder Errol. The remainder of the personas, Bobby, N, D, and L, felt betrayed by Bruno for favoring the murderers. Despite his mental health crisis, Bruno still had his sister in mind. Her absence left him alone with his thoughts. He would make more distress calls over time, one of which would be picked up by the Vasagaten before its tragic end. With a boat on hand, he needed to go out and find Astrid, but he could only take 2 of his personas with him. In the end, Bruno, along with Henry and Miranda, would leave Balboa Island. The rest of his personas would be left behind, now lifeless, but still haunting. Now that the story of Raft Chapter 1 has been told, we have a really good look at the events of the world of Raft. With the lore entries from the radio tower, Vasagaten, Balboa Island, and the sailing as one newspaper clipping from Caravan Town, we have a relative timeline of events. We know that the flooding event that formed the Endless Sea started well before December of an unknown year. There would need to be enough time for the Floating Cities project to take off and construct cities like Tangaroa. By December, a lot is happening. The Correa siblings begin their 3-month shift on Balboa. The supplementary team for Celine would arrive at the radio tower, and a distress call from Balboa would get picked up by the radio tower team. By January, Sparrow, one of the radio tower team members, would disappear. By February, Astrid would have disappeared from Balboa, and several more distress calls would have been made and picked up at the radio tower. Continuing into March and April, we get hints at what is to come. Before ending this video, I do want to mention the existence of these newspapers covering the windows in the ranger station. While a lot of it is hard to decipher without some Photoshop work, better lighting, and higher resolution screenshots, what I can read is not good. There are hints of the chaos from the early days of the Rising Waters and some other questionable events. I will do a deep dive on these in the next video, considering the origin of Caravan Town is tied to the flooding of Jakarta, Indonesia, one of the earliest cities to be lost to the rising waters. Bruno's story on Balboa is a cautionary tale against the dangers of loneliness. Even in a world where survival requires physical strength and endurance to stay afloat, mental fortitude is just as important and just as fragile. Not everyone will have the mental strength to carry on in such a harsh world. For some, they become oblivious to their reality. Without the help of someone, whether it's a loved one or a stranger, some people can't help themselves. I would know this from personal experience. If you or someone you know or love needs help, please take the first step to find a source of local help. Whether it's a phone hotline that specializes in mental health, a support group near you, or a professional therapist, please don't hesitate to find help. The internet has plenty of sources, but there are too many to list. Find one that is either local to you or a national source. Everyone has their struggles, but no one deserves to go through them alone. The end of this video marks the end of the story of Balboa Island, but Bruno's tale does continue later in the story of Raft. At the end, once all 3 relay stations are powered on, they display the coordinates to a place called Caravan Town. This would be the next destination to explore in the Endless Sea. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like or a comment for the algorithm so I can keep making them. Also, I've been covering the lore for another survival game called The Long Dark. I'll link some of those videos on the end screen if you are interested. Remember what we are fighting for, Forward Scout. I'll see you at Caravan Town.